So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I think you guys get used to me talking just about antennas, but I wanted to talk a little bit about remote power. And the only reason I want to talk about it is in about the last year and a half, and I've been in the industry slightly less than Keith, but probably just slightly. Ooh, that hurts. He called me an old dude yesterday, so I'm getting back at you. But in the last about year and a half, we've seen an extreme uptick in people calling us wanting to take Wi-Fi, and really like Wi-Fi with cameras, and put it in a variety of different scenarios, stuff we never saw before. So I wanted to talk a little bit about remote power, solar power. And I was having a cold drink with somebody the other night, which is where most of the business is done at these sessions. And they were asking me, what are some of the use cases we're seeing? So a couple of examples just to kind of get your mind thinking. One of the biggest things we're getting pulled into now is, and it's actually several different prison systems in the U.S., is they're having a problem with, the way they build the prisons in the U.S. is they put them usually out in a small town where it's kind of in the country, because you don't want prisons usually by a bunch of people. But we're having problems with drones flying in and dropping contraband into the prisons. Drones, cool technology until it's used wrong. So what we're doing is we've been asked to come in and set up systems throughout on the perimeter of the prison that has no power, but what they want to be able to do is do like a cellular backhaul and put a little wireless camera so they can see drones coming in. So that's a weird use case, but it's actually a very applicable one. We're getting pulled into ski resorts because they want wireless throughout the whole mountain. Pulled into, there's a cemetery that's getting vandals. No power, but they want to be able to have camera technology and be able to do it. So a lot of cool stuff. So I wanted to talk a little bit today, just kind of some of the thought patterns you go to when you're thinking about a solar solution and some of the things that you need to work through when you're doing it. So first of all, the first thing you want to do is always ask the right questions. One thing, it's not as simple as just, hey, let's buy, I always ask us, do you all have a pre-configured solar solutions? Yeah, we have some basic ones, but you got to go through the right question and thought pattern. Otherwise, there's no way you're going to be able to design the right system. So we actually have, if you guys are interested, we have a little questionnaire we've put together that, if you fill in these boxes, it gives you a really good starting point. But the most important thing really is looking at stuff like what are you putting in it, or how's it being powered? Is it being powered AC, DC, is it PoE? But more importantly, it's all about math of adding up what's going in there. So if you're having, maybe it's a radio, and maybe you're going to be powering a PoE camera, but making sure you understand what that amps and the voltage looks like. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to size the system properly. Hours of operation, very important. A lot of people, will want to power, 24/7. Well, maybe it's not 24/7, but knowing what it is, where's the system going? And I'm going to talk about that. Obviously, solar solutions work better in certain parts of the world. We'll talk about that. And how's it being mounted? You want to make sure you're mounted in a situation, in a place where it's going to maximize your sunlight. So the right question is critical when you're doing a solar solution. So the sun doesn't shine evenly. That's pretty logical. So location, location, location. So for you cold weather people, it actually does have some advantages, but not as many advantages as hot weather climates do when it comes to solar. The solar panels work better, but it does reduce the capacity of lead acid batteries. And what we're still seeing in the solar world, if you will, is lead acid still is the most cost-effective way to do it. I do know there's a lot of more advancements coming up with battery technology and even solar panel technology, which will change the way it works. But the one thing we have noticed in the last probably 2 years is the cost to be able to generate the power to do a wireless network's come way down. Again, just because the panel technology and the battery technology has gotten better. One of the ways you want to combat if you're in a cold location, though, is make sure you have just enough batteries. Hot weather, obviously, yeah, we love you. We got a Phoenix guy back there high-fiving me. Hot weather is better for solar. Phoenix in the United States, #1 for solar location, next to South Texas, where I'm from. The problem is it does reduce the life of a battery. For us that live, and I know Matthew can relate to me, a battery in Texas lasts about 4 to 5 years in your car, and then it goes. You got to replace it out just because the heat reduces the life. Some of the things we do to combat it when we're doing these solar solutions with Wi-Fi is we add vents, we add shade, put them in shade. But in general, hot weather is going to be better for solar. So here's your average sunlight, and I did this for Europe. So for my Viking and Swedish and Finnish friends, way up here in column A, the green is actually not good. This would be a map where green's not good, red is actually good. So down in Lisbon, you're going to have a much better environment for solar for obvious reasons. Less batteries, less solar. Doesn't mean you can't use solar in the colder climates. It's just you have to size the system accordingly. And that's where this is. And this is the one thing I do love about it. I'm a math guy. I like the absolute math. Wi-Fi, we have a lot of art and some of the stuff, but this is very mathematical. So really when you're looking at the sizing, and I'm not going to read off the whole equation for you, it's really all about what's the watts consumed in the system, and it's all about amp hours. But amp hours in the hours of operation per day, and really most importantly, this is the one where people get messed up, is backup in days. We had a system the other day, it was for providing power to some of these digital signs. They wanted 7 days of backup if they lost, and no sun. And we were like, that's fine, but the system we designed was enormous. You need to really make sure you know what your backup in days you need. If it's 2 or 3 days, you can keep the system smaller. And then the solar panels, basically the same top of the formula, just looking at winter peak sunlight hours. The reason you do winter is that's going to be your lowest sunlight hours. And then you do this times 1.2 factor. That's very important. It's a margin of error factor, if you will. We call it fudge factor in the States, but actually allows you to decide the solar panels sizes appropriately. Calculation factors, I'm not going to read off all of these. Just know there is a clean, like I said, we have a real clean spreadsheet that we can go through and help size it. If you're interested, I can send it to you. If you guys ever want to jump on the phone, we have no problem walking through some of this stuff with you. So some of the common design flaws, and this is, and these are design flaws that we've experienced because we've messed it up ourselves. It's like anything in life. I usually can tell people how to do something because I've screwed it up myself. One of them is undersizing the solar panels. And a lot of it is because of aesthetics. I was talking to, I think, Chris was talking about somebody having solar panels that look like the tile on your roof. That's nice. I think Tesla's coming out with it. But in general, solar panels are kind of big, ugly things. So one of the biggest things people do is say, I don't want that big solar panel. Can you make it smaller? Well, you end up arguing. The problem is if you make it smaller and it's not sized right, every time your battery goes to recharge, if it goes to be 100%, maybe the next time it's 99%, then it's 98%, and then it's not. And then over a course of time, by having the undersize, your system just stops working. So undersizing solar panels, again, a lot of it because of aesthetics, not cost, is where we see a lot of the problem. Another one is over-discharging batteries. Unlike lithium ion, and we're using, again, lead acid tends to be the most cost-effective. Over-cycling or doing a deep discharge can kill a lead acid battery. So if you look at one cycle being a charge and discharge, this chart basically what it shows is that if you discharge a battery from 100% to 0%, you can only get about 400 cycles and then the battery's dead. It's done. But if you can build the battery sizes or size it appropriately, you can actually go up to almost 2,000 cycles if you're just discharging at about 40 or 50%. So dramatically better battery cycling just by making sure you have enough batteries and sizing it properly. So that's some of the things. Other factors, and these are things, again, these are things we've experienced because after we did the installations, we were like, what the heck? Avoid bird perch spots. A solar panel, think about the design. It's trying to bring in the sunlight. If birds are somewhere where they're going to be pooping on it, don't put it there. Actually, that is a big problem in solar. Another thing is snow. The one advantage, though, for the northern people, the way it works is the further you get away from the equator, the more you tilt the solar panels. It actually is advantage of allowing the snow to just kind of slide off of it. But you do have to do some maintenance to make sure that you don't have snow. And the last thing is shading. A couple of things. We had somebody the other day that put the solar panel behind something, and they're asking us why it wasn't working. And another, send me pictures. I was like, why do you have that in front? Oh, that was just there. So we moved it, and it's working now. Also, look at trees. If you're doing your system in the winter and there's no leaves on the trees, it's working great. Remember, that may look differently in May when the trees have leaves. So just make sure, just because it's open in the winter months at the time, it may not look good in the summer. So just make sure you put it someplace that's open. Anyway, so sell solar. All this other stuff you have. I'm not giving y'all 2 antennas. And I'm not giving solar panels solutions away. That's not one of the coupons. All right, thanks.